Good evening, everyone. I'm Schiller Hanna. Come out here from Medina. This story has taken me 50 years to be brave enough to tell you. In fact, I haven't even told my husband this until today. That's how deep this story is for me. Someone's just talked about going dark. Well, this one's a little bit dark. They say in the 12-step program that we're sick as we are secret. This is kind of one of my secrets, and you guys get to hear it first. So my title is Satin and Skin. When I was a little girl, I got a beautiful white satin nightgown similar to this from my mother. I was about 7, and I was crazy about it. I would fondle it, I would touch it. I was obsessed with the softness of this beautiful little nightgown. It was soothing to me. It was meaningful to me. I don't think most 7-year-olds feel that way about something soft like that, but it was very important to me. Then when I was about 9, my grandmother came to visit from San Diego. We lived in Oregon at the time. And I'd never met her, and she was Grandma Schiller. And I looked up at her, and she had white hair and a very wrinkled face. And I said to her, "How old are you, about 1,000?" She did not like me after that. She just looked so old to me. But Grandma Schiller did something that nobody else did in my life. She smoked filter cigarettes. Well, she would leave the little butts in the ashtray, and somehow I got a hold of those and I started tearing them apart and touching them, and they were very soft. And I became very interested in those, and I would go around the house and play with her cigarette butts, those little tiny silky filters. And so the same thing, the texture of it was very appealing to me. So then we flash forward until I'm 16. Now I'm living in Olympia, Washington. At this point, the next door neighbor lady comes over. I'm going to set this down, excuse me. It's hard to hang on to all that. And this was Mrs. Lindsay, and she brought her little son, who was 14-year-old Jackie, over, and she comes into our living room, and I'm in our dining room. We're all standing around, and she grabs him by the head, and she says, "Look, he's pulling his hair out, and there are bald patches." And we all went, "Oh!" It was like this big deal, and she holds his head up, and sure enough, there's little bald patches. Well, shame. There was horror, there was mystery. Poor little Jackie. So I go to bed that night. I'm 16 years old, and I'm laying in bed, and I think, wonder what it feels like to pull your hair out. I, the little kid who likes texture. One hair, it might as well have been heroin. I was hooked, and I couldn't stop. And in a few days, I had little bald patches. There's actually a name for this, but I think I was in my 20s or 30s before I knew there was a name for it. It's called trichotillomania. And it's a form of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And there are about 4% of the population has a version of this. Some pull out their eyelashes, some their eyebrows, some pick at their skin. A lot of us pull hair. There are now organizations. The internet has shown me that there's websites, there's conventions. I have a book about it if anybody's interested, if you know somebody with this issue. But it was a big deal for me. And these were the 60s. There was no internet. I certainly was too embarrassed and too ashamed to tell anyone, other than people would say, "What's wrong with your hair?" And I didn't want to talk about it. I stopped going to the hairdresser. By the time I was in college, I was wearing a scarf all the time because I was so ashamed and didn't want people asking those questions. I was also very shy. I had a lot of other family issues, and so I wasn't the healthiest, happiest little girl at that time. And certainly didn't have a love life, a dating life, or any other kind of life other than going to college and trying to figure it all out. So anyway, finally when I'm about 19, my girlfriend Norma said, let's go up to Bremerton. There's a bunch of sailors up there. Friday night, we'll go dancing. We'll see if we can find somebody that'll dance with you or something. Because nobody was interested in me. So sure enough, we go up there and we meet all these, their sailors are easy, I guess. So anyway, there were a lot of guys. We were outnumbered 20-1. Even me with my weirdness, I guess I had it fixed good enough, covered up good enough. So anyway, I started dating this guy. And the other side of the story is because I'd never dated, I was still a virgin. Okay, that's fine. And I was pretty religious back then, and I was determined to stay a virgin. So this guy, after a few weeks, few months, says, I want to marry you. And I thought to myself, he's a nice guy. I like him enough. My family life's not the good. I probably got to get out of here anyway. But I thought, what if having sex will help me stop pulling my hair? Maybe it's only that. And so that was part of my hidden agenda. We never talked about my hair. He never mentioned it. I guess I was hiding it well enough, or I was too embarrassed. I can tell you, I think in the 7 years we were married, I mentioned it once. And I said he hadn't noticed. To me, it was like this big deal. So it's not so bad after 50 years. I can finally talk about it. But, I'm not proud to say that hidden agenda didn't really work out. He was a good enough guy. I got away. I got my new life. I don't regret it. I wouldn't do it again. I know better now. First of all, it doesn't work, and second, it wasn't fair to him. But finally, about 22 years ago, I found medication. I found appropriate therapy, and it's 99% resolved. It's not perfect. I still have flare-ups, especially if I'm nervous or certain things are going on. I can't ever claim a cure. But I can tell you that the issue of self-esteem, beauty, texture, satin, hair is soft. Don't ever try, I dare any of you, don't go home and try this. Please don't go home and try it. In case you're one of those 4 people out of 100 that might be susceptible to getting addicted to it. Isn't that strange that I would tell you don't go try it? I don't want any of you to have to go through the embarrassment and the humiliation and the sadness and the self-hatred that I went through. Now I know, like we all are, that we all have our vulnerabilities, we all have our frailties, we all have our issues. But I'm thrilled that after 50 years, and it's literally been 50 years, that I can finally stand up here and talk about it. Thank you.